call the roll call. Yeah, pledge allegiance. Okay.
Good job. Don't try to trick me.
I'm trying to go fast as I can. Okay.
Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, I'll start with a roll call.
Rebecca Johnson.
Brandy Pelletier.
Eunice Landry.
Wyatt Varney.
Shaylee Davis.
Matt Juzokis.
Carol Locke.
Jason Henry.
Tim Broderick.
Heidi Duford.
Lila Duncan.
Lauren Ferruccio. Ann Pierce. Pamela Cloud.
Public hearing. And now open the public hearing on expenditure for capital reserve funds, and I'll let you talk about that.
So the public hearing tonight is, while the board considers authorizing a withdrawal from the Capital Reserve Fund for Building and Grounds, probably with a motion to follow not to exceed $87,000 for the purposes of having a well drilled with related infrastructure to provide irrigation for the backfields. And that number is based on a budget-only quote. We haven't conducted procurement, but if the board ends up voting after the public hearing to authorize potential withdrawal from the fund, then we would conduct public procurement, which is governed by our policy, and then we would bring back the results of that RFP process to the board, and at that point there's another opportunity for the joint board to decide to authorize or not authorize the expenditure. But the purpose of tonight's public hearing and following vote would be to authorize the potential withdrawal of funds from the capital reserve.
With that, I'll open the floor if anybody has questions or concerns. All right, seeing none and hearing none. We close the public hearing. This will come up later, right?
Yep.
All right. Next up will be public input, and read a statement first. This is a public meeting under New Hampshire RSA 91A, consistent with requirements of the state constitution, Part 1, Article 8. Public business is to be conducted transparently with all access afforded to the public. This is a business meeting being held in public. However, this is not a meeting with the public. Public comments are welcome to the extent they may help inform the board regarding decisions about items on the agenda. Personal attacks and/or complaints about individual employees are not authorized in this forum. Public board policy requires that we refer complaints about employees to the superintendent, who will make himself available to the public at his office during business hours. If the complaint involves a superintendent, then it may be made to the board chair person via email, in person or via email. Per state law, up to 30 minutes are available for public comment during each meeting. However, public comment is limited to 3 minutes per individual during each public comment for the items on the agenda. The board chair may remind you when your time has expired. With that, I open up public comments.
Good evening, Marilyn St. Cyr. And I had a question from the last meeting that I did attend, and it was discussed that there was going to be an exit interview committee that was going to be formed to talk with some of the very many people who left here over the summer and to try to figure out why so many people left all at once. And I was just wondering if that committee had been formed, and that was my question surrounding that, because as I said last time, I found it very unusual that over the summer so many people had left. I do live in town. I retired from here as the guidance director in 12. I have been on the school board, and it's certainly, we never had any such turnover as this. People loved it here. So just curious if the committee had been formed and where that might be at, and thank you.
We usually don't answer, but I will answer on this. We have set up some stuff for people to talk to some people.
I do understand that. But that's my question.
Yep, and we've started work on some of that, so thank you. Any other public input? Seeing none, we'll move on. I'll close the public input. We will go on to agenda review.
Make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
I would like to add under reports, section B, Prospect Mountain High School, before the principal, we do have our student rep here, Wyatt Varney, so I'd like to add him on the agenda.
Aye.
And roll call, my name is missing, but I was present at the last meeting.
She's on minutes.
All right.
Oh, we're not on agenda, we're not on.
Get him ahead.
Come on, come on. It's one of those days.
It's catchy. I started with it messing up. It's not a big deal. Duly noted.
We'll save it for the next one.
No.
I should keep this with us.
All right, so with that one amendment, is all in favor? Any motion? Any opposed? What's that?
You're doing great.
Yeah, they made a motion. Next up is approval of meeting minutes of September 5th, 2023.
I don't think you're on it at all. I don't think you're mentioned, are you? Doesn't say you're absent either.
Just added you.
Hey, thanks.
I move approval of the minutes from September. Get the ball rolling.
Second.
Aaron seconded. And we have one change on there, correct?
Got it.
Got it. Any other concerns? All in favor? Aye. Any abstentions?
Yes.
Okay, 2 abstentions? 3 abstentions. Okay, thank you.
703.
Reports, and first up is the expenditure report. Anything you want to talk about, Heidi, or?
Still early on, still working on getting the full encumbrances. Do you have any questions, or should I answer them?
Anybody have any questions? All right. How about budget goals?
So by the time we see you again, we will have drafted and met with the Finance Committee on a proposed budget for next year. That'll begin a process that'll go on for a couple of months after that. But as always, if you can give us goals to help us make that first proposal, it would be helpful.
Good.
Are we gonna get a schedule of the meetings for budget development? Usually, okay. Thank you.
It is helpful. It is helpful to have a schedule.
Well, it's gonna come quick.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is.
All right, then move on to Prospect Mountain High School. And first up, we do have our new student rep this year. He's a junior, Wyatt Varney, and I'm putting him on the spot. He didn't have a lot for tonight, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and anything you would like to express, within reason.
Yeah, I just wanted to take this time to introduce myself. I'm in the graduating class of 2025, so I'm a junior. My name is Wyatt Varney. I try to be as involved as I can at the school. I compete in 2 sports, which are bass fishing and basketball. I am newly a member of the National Honor Society, as well as the president of Student Council.
Awesome.
Welcome. Welcome.
Did you want to add anything to that? Or?
I would like to add that Wyatt secured us a bass fishing coach through networking, so we're really proud of him for that. So making that happen for you and your team members, and happy to have you aboard.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you just throw out there real quick who you got for bass fishing coaches, because this is pretty impressive.
So the coach for the school is Raymond Meyer, who's also the throwing coach. He started and ran the New Hampshire Junior Bass Masters for 17 years. This was his first year not doing it. It's a very distinguished program in New Hampshire for children under the age of 18. Our boat captain this year his name's Bill Lionetta. He's local in Alton, and he's a very top tier angler with lots of experience.
Well, thanks for doing that.
Thanks for doing that. It's awesome. I've heard rave reviews. So thank you.
Wyatt, as I told Grace before you, like we welcome student participation in discussions when we're discussing things, especially as they pertain to students. Please feel free to join the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So, moving on from there, we'll turn it over to the principal's report.
Right, and I'd like to add that I included Wyatt's letter in the packet for you to read. You'll see that he has a passion for this and is well spoken. So we've had a busy first 6 weeks of school, a lot of really wonderful things going on. I appreciate the faculty and staff who are, enriching our program way beyond the classroom. We had our annual back to school night last year. I was told by others that this was a pretty normal attendance. We started the evening with Tom Stevens, the band, but it was led by students, conducted by students, and that was pretty exciting. The percussion line drummed in the other members of the marching band, and they had a little number for us, and their theme was decades. And so they were, at first when you'd watch him walk in, you'd think, well, these are kind of unusual attire for a band, a marching band, but then they told us that a lot of them were dressed in 80s and grunge. So it was pretty fun. They had a great time. They sounded fabulous. So we are settling into new routines. Students and teachers are utilizing the hall passes. The dress code referrals are down, and teachers are reporting a good drop-off with cell phones in the classrooms. And one teacher reported that some of the students that they talked to in class said, it's kind of nice to have a break from these. And so they were appreciating that the adults were cracking down and giving them an opportunity to concentrate more in their classes. So we have some two early graduation requests. I'll share the names with you in non-public, but pretty exciting plans for those two young people. So I'll be asking you to approve those tonight. I have Senora Kimball here tonight. She has proposed a trip to Europe next spring, and so the board can ask her any questions if you want to about her trip, but that's outlined in your packet as well. One of the things that I'd like to go over is handbook additions and updates. So you approved our handbook back in August, but now that we're underway and we're seeing the needs of the building, I have asked you to update some of the language and add some new things. So the step process, after we approved it, the process still fell short of meeting the laws of New Hampshire in regards to discipline. And so what we've done is it was reviewed by Assistant Superintendent Jozokis and as well as Dr. Broderick, and then it was reviewed by legal as well to make sure that it was in keeping with state law. And I think that the wording that I've asked you to approve, it really provides supports for students and interventions much earlier in the process than before, as well as making it very clear who has the right to remove a student from a class if their behavior continues to be disruptive to the level that their own and fellow students' education is at risk. So I'm really happy with this new wording. I think that it's better for the students overall because we're giving them better supports earlier on, but also making it more clear how they can end up finding themselves at the superintendent's office. Senior privileges have been something the high school's always done, but it's never been in the handbook. And so we missed that. And so we found that while we're giving senior privileges, a couple of things have bubbled up, such as if you have senior privileges, but now you're failing a class, should you be able to retain those privileges? And so we're asking to change that so we can get students back in, because the last thing we want is to give more freedom senior year and then not see the students walk across the stage at graduation. Also, in terms of building supervision and providing proper understanding of who's in the building in case of an emergency, we were encountering students not checking out or checking in. So they were using their senior privileges but kind of coming and going. So we need to tighten that up as well. And so if students aren't doing that, then they'll lose their privilege. So we're just trying to tighten that up, but also by putting it in the handbook, it's there for parents to read as well, and it just becomes a better communication tool. We haven't had anything in our handbook before about unauthorized recording and videotaping. So we're asking to add that into the language and to add that to our cell phone policy. We needed to put in something for skipped and missed classes so that the repercussions of doing that were clearer and spelled out in the handbook. And then we also wanted to add additional and new wording for arriving at school, because we want to work with families a little bit more. If a family has, they get transportation from a parent has to drop them off early, we now provide supervision in the cafeteria earlier in the day. And so those doors are open earlier, and so I wanted to reflect that in the handbook. So those are additions to the handbook that I'll also be asking you to approve.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
So you're saying the doors will be open at 7, but you don't want the students arriving earlier than 25 minutes. So if they do have to arrive at 7, the doors will be open, but that's with special permission? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because what we found in the past is that sometimes students would get here early, but they weren't necessarily being supervised, or they were here late just to hang out with friends, and then there wasn't adult supervision. So we don't want something where kids are congregating early for social reasons, because that becomes more of a building management issue. So if families do need to say, hey, we need to drop our student off at 7:15 every morning or 7:05, that we know. And we've said, okay, yep, you have permission to be in the building. Make sure we have that conversation of you need to be in the cafeteria where there's an adult present. So it's a building management and safety issue, which cuts down our liability.
Sure.
Yeah.
What time does the library open?
I think 7:30, I believe. Yeah.
I had a question about the senior privileges,
Yes.
the policy. So it says that seniors who are failing a class will be notified on Monday that their senior privileges has been suspended for 1 week until they have passing grade, whichever comes last. I just wonder if 1 week is long enough time, given, do teachers put in grades every week, or what is the policy there?
Yeah,
Because I don't wanna put teachers in a position where they're being pressured to put in a grade, nor do I wanna put a student in a position where they don't. I mean, a week is a short amount of time, and certainly I wouldn't wanna drag it out, but is that a reasonable amount of time, I guess is my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it's the minimum of a week. So once you've gotten yourself into that situation, or am I reading it wrong, or did we
So I
word
read it as you have a week to bring up your failing grade, or your senior privileges are taken away. Maybe I read it wrong.
So as of that Monday, so if we run those grade reports on a Friday and you're failing, as of Monday, you need to be in school. So you're not gonna be able to leave early during that time. You'll have to go up to the academic.
I'm sorry, what?
So if a student, let's say we run the grade reports on a Friday.
Yeah.
On Monday, they will be notified, you're failing these classes.
And that Monday, they have to immediately, they lose senior privileges like that?
So not permanently until they can earn them back and so within the form, they can earn them back. So it's not a permanent loss. It's okay, we ran the report, you have a 58 in English. And so on Monday, we give notice.
I feel like that is taking a lot away from a kid who maybe missed a test and a 0 went in, because teachers like to put zeros in as placeholders.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that that's fair to the kids.
So there is a part on the form that the students have, and I thought that I included it, but basically they can go to that teacher and get it signed off. So like, let's say that on Monday morning, they get notified you have a 58 in English. There is a form that they can take to the teacher, and the teacher can say, yeah, this isn't a true 58. So they would just have to follow through with the teacher.
On Monday morning, but I just I don't agree with it. I think that there needs to be more time and give the student a little bit of time to bring it up as opposed to immediately a punitive measure.
So I think that, from my perspective, senior privilege is a privilege. And if you've had a failed class in the quarter, like let's say the spring, the fourth quarter of the year, or a failing semester grade, you don't get senior privileges for the fall. And so it's an earned privilege, and what we don't want to do is some students leave block 6 and 7. And so that we don't want to continue to say you can leave from school early rather than going to the academic help center or going to the library and getting those grades caught up.
So that student, if they were working, would have to not go to work that day.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Concern is, can we back it up by a week so that they have time to notify an employer
if they're going to lose it? Yeah.
And they have time to work on it and work with the teacher. I think teachers are very reasonable about working with kids, and I think you've got to give a kid a week to get the form and go find a teacher. I mean, sometimes it's hard to.
Plus, if they come in late for senior privileges, they have that privilege as opposed to the kid who finds out at 8 o'clock they can't leave.
Right.
So that becomes an unfair dynamic too.
Yeah.
So on Monday morning, if they're a late arrival, it's not going to go into effect for a late arrival until Tuesday. My concern is that this is a privilege. We're shortening a school day for a senior. We're not requiring them to stay on campus. If they have a job that they're going to, they know that I've got to keep my grades up so that I can continue. Like if it is spelled out ahead of time, they know the consequences of a failing grade.
I understand that. I think that it's a very rigid policy.
Okay.
I don't think that it's fair to kids. I think that kids need at least a week to bring that grade up. I don't think that from a Friday to a Monday or a Tuesday is enough time. And I think that we've got to give kids a little bit of leeway. I mean, we're not talking about a month. We're not talking about
About a week. I mean, again, I also look at the businesses, because if they're relying on these people to show up, and they're all short anyways.
Sure.
If they're not given an opportunity.
Well, and parents also.
Yep.
I
And
mean,
parents too.
obviously, most of the kids are under 18, so I think most of the seniors are, maybe they're not. But if they're under 18, parents have to be notified about this. I'm pretty sure parents will get on them if you give them that week. You know, if you don't give them the week, the parents won't have a chance to even talk to the kids about it.
Just give them a chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we run the report. So what I'm hearing is feedback is we run the report on a Friday, and then on the Monday they're notified you're in the failure range, and if you do not get those grades up to passing, or submit the form to show, hey, I'm actually not failing, this is a placeholder, by Friday, then they have lost their senior privilege. We don't want to take them a privilege away permanently, right? That's just, you have to stick around and get your work done until you're back in passing zone.
I think it's a great compromise. Just, get all people involved, parents and teachers and the kids.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
So we build that 1 week buffer in.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for your
I have a
feedback.
quick question. Do you guys have like online grading where you can always check your grades?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be naturally a surprise if a parent got a grade, like a class failing. Like they have access to it, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Not our
Parents
parents
in high school
check it.
don't really check grades too much.
Yeah, just would lie up to your own kids.
And teachers may not put grades in
I know
daily.
Amber checks it every
Well, I know for like, I have no experience with high schoolers, so I don't know, but I just know for the app that we use for grading, the teachers have 2 weeks to put in
Right.
grades.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was just thinking that if they have, they have 2 weeks. I didn't know if you guys did online grading.
And
Yeah, what
again,
is the policy for teachers to put grades in?
So I do not know. I'm sorry.
Okay. I mean, is there a policy?
well, and I know I've run
Not
it,
that I know
I'll
of.
just say, I've run my own kid, where I get, a little miffed, their grades are not where it's supposed to be, and then Next thing you know, she has to go, the grade hasn't been put in, or there was a test that was made up that's not been put in yet. So,
We want to give teachers a little grace too.
Right.
if they're grading.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so that form will help, because then the teacher could be like, oh yeah, you're not failing, I can sign this off for you.
instead of the email that they get in the morning from maybe a parent.
So that's good. You know, the spirit of this is good. We want kids to be successful. We want our seniors to have freedom and flexibility, but we want them to make sure they get across that line, and we don't want to, if they're misusing that freedom, we don't want them to get too far gone where they can't recover, and then we're having a super stressful second semester, or May. So that's good. Any other questions about some of those recommendations?
I have a concern with the STEP program.
Sure.
Section FA, that if a parent or guardian is not available to meet in a timely manner, the conference may be held without them. I don't think that we should be having that without them, and who's determining what the timely manner is, because most people do work.
So we just don't want to keep students out of class and not accessing their education because a parent is unable to come in. However, we did, when we were discussing this, that we would offer phone conferences or video conferences as well in person, so that we would be very flexible. But the number one thing we can't do is deny them an education.
So state law,
I was gonna say,
will,
are we-
yeah,
it's in
a
state
principal under state law can only hold a student out of class or out of school for up to 10 days. So we wouldn't want to create a situation where, because they were waiting to have a meeting and write a behavior plan, a kid ends up essentially being excluded from class for 10 days, when it should be a matter of having the meeting, writing the plan, and getting the student
So-
back to class. That's,
Right.
the
I-
idea
maybe
here is to
putting
get
a-
kids back to class.
Right, and I think 10 days is definitely an outrageous amount of time. I think,
I'd like to see a time frame, I think, put in there, though, because a timely manner could be
you know,
left
is that
into
48
interpretation
hours?
for
Is 2
anybody.
days a reasonable amount of time? I mean, I don't think 24 hours is reasonable.
Right.
Because sometimes parents are away, and I know they can call in, but I don't know.
So what's reasonable?
Right, what is reasonable?
I mean, I wouldn't want them out of the classroom not receiving direct instruction for more than 2 days.
So 48 hours.
48 hours?
I mean, I would hope by step 4, the parents are well involved by then anyway. I'm just not too comfortable with the verbiage is all.
Thank
So
you.
I reported on this topic at your last meeting. The primary motivation behind the changes to this STEP system are to comply with state and federal discipline laws. A principal in a public school cannot exclude a child from their education for more than 10 days. They don't have the authority to do that, whether they want to or not. They can't do it.
Right.
So we need to be very careful about having systems that create these, whether they're inadvertent or not, whatever circumstances where kids end up outside of class for, more than 10 days. It's against the law.
I think 2 days is.
So we can change this to put in what we say, 48 hours?
Yeah, I've noted that. Any other questions on these requests?
There are circumstances where a student might need to be excluded from school or from a program for more than 10 days, and there are ways under the law for that to happen.
Right.
It has to move out of the school. It has to come to me.
Right.
I have to hold a hearing with the student and parent or guardian and then make a determination. Then the law allows a superintendent to extend exclusion for only up to another 10 days. Beyond that, only a New Hampshire school board can make the decision to exclude a student beyond that.
Now I'm a little bit confused because this talks about they can't go back to class, and then further on it talks about out of school suspension. Those are two different things.
They are. And what we're trying to navigate right now, and we're not the only school doing this, is that the Department of Justice has begun to approach states and ask for data on non-suspension exclusions from school for partial or full days, and look at all of them as part of this cumulative exclusion that's limited under discipline law. So that is exactly the problem that we're trying to navigate. So the idea that it's not exclusion if a student is sitting in an in-school suspension room, that's not flying. If it did at one point, it's not now. So there is some suspicion, we've been told by our attorneys, again, with the Department of Justice, that some schools might have been using their in-school suspension rooms to get around discipline laws, but still exclude kids from educational programs for more than the amount of time that we're supposed to be able to. So that is exactly what we're trying to navigate.
I just wanted clarification because you
Yep.
kept talking about the principal could only do 10 days out of school. Well,
In or out. So again, this is the crux of the problem. If a student has 10 days of in-school suspension, I am considering that the principal has exhausted her authority at that point.
And sometimes parents won't come in, Rebecca, that's the other piece. So you have to have some kind of time limit in there so that conference can happen if a parent refuses to come in. I've had that experience, where a parent has said, no,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
not coming in.
Yeah,
she
so
has to
the
have that.
timeline is fine, just
Just give
having
that
something
48
in there, I
hours,
think,
right, I
should
get
be-
it.
yeah.
I do get it.
I was just gonna ask if these, once we voted, these, amendments or changes would be going out like in a broadcast message to everybody.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that a letter home would be important, because there's substantial enough changes in here that should be put out to our community, yeah.
I had a question for Senior Kimball. Hi, do you, sure, if you'd like to. I'm just curious about your trip and wondering, how many kids do you have interested?
Well, before we get to the trip, do we want to at least wrap up the handbook stuff first and then go back to the trip?
Sure.
I'm on back.
So sorry.
I know we're all over the map, but I just want to, so we're talking about handbook.
For a vote, a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, I move that we accept the changes to the handbook as amended and discussed.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain, opposed? Okay, it passes. Yeah. The next step, I was going to go back now to, if you want to come back and talk about your trip, that'd be great.
What was your question?
So I read your letter and you provided a lot of details, so you certainly don't need to go over that again. But I was just wondering how many kids you had interested so far, or how many you thought would go, or?
I based the trip on how many I thought would go.
Yep.
So the numbers I have, right now, I have almost 20 people that are looking toward taking the Sailed by Literacy test. Thank you for all voting yes on doing that this year. I thought it'd be a good opportunity for those kids to get out of the country, put their language to use. I can't, without you approving it, I can't really, hey guys, who wants to go to Spain?
Yeah.
So I'd like to say,
Right.
I'd like to say that many. I'm nervous on both sides of it. If it's gonna be less people, it could be a more costly trip. If it's more people, that means more chaperones,
Right.
and logistics, but that's a pretty average number, and I chose that number, if you guys can see, there's different prices that it falls into based on how many kids, so I've really been looking at different trips for the past 6 to 7 years, and we had some things happen in between all of that took travel options away. Then I've been really trying to shoot for under $4,000. It's been really hard to find anything educational travel with kids that involves, even in the country, where it's under $3,700. So those have been kind of the trips I planned. So that one in particular, I did do a private trip to make sure that Prospect kids and the people we knew were all together, traveling to places that I have been and would feel comfortable bringing kids. And I think the number's good for the number of chaperones. So I'd be happy to report back if it's approved, what we'd be looking at for chaperones if it's looking bigger. But It is important that this trip is not open. It's important that you know it's not open to anybody in the school to go. I'm not looking to travel with kids that I haven't had in class, that aren't already speaking the language and already don't have a year under their belt. So that number's based on people that I thought were level 2 or higher, even if they're not in level 3 this year, that would be open to them. We did have some scheduling issues where there were some kids that wanted to be in 3 but couldn't this year, but would really like to go on a trip. So that's really based on my levels 2, 3, and 4 of who would be interested in traveling. So.
Is the 16th before April vacation?
It's the Tuesday before April vacation, so we would be out of school. I'm going to say all day Tuesday, depending on when they would end up booking the air travel. Would be safe to say we would be out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay. We would be coming back on the Friday of the kids' vacation, which helps them get used to the jet lag, and maybe if they needed to do some work when they got back. I did put in there, it's important to me that the kids don't take advantage, and of course these aren't the kids that are. There's plenty of Wi-Fi all over the world that we can sit and get homework done and make sure they check in with teachers. And I think it's a great opportunity too for them to maybe bring elements of their classes they already take into Europe and maybe do some reflection on that and come back and share with their classes that they're missing of what we did. Yeah, there's plenty of opportunity there. So I'm excited, and I hope that you approve it. Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the.
There you go, chaperone.
Dan wants to chaperone.
I want a chaperone too. I don't speak the
Barcelona,
language.
Madrid, and Andalusia.
I second.
Any further discussion on that, besides people that want to
You
chaperone, I
might
guess?
open up to some cross-curricular activities, so if you could get the English teachers to replace some of their missing assignments that week with some assignments related to the trip, that'd be kind of fun. I'm all about cross-curricular.
And we could book it and just follow them around.
All right, so, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed, abstentions? Okay, it passes.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. All right, that was easy.
Is that the end of your report?
Okay, no. Can I keep going? So I wanted to tell you, we're taking the students, the faculty and staff are taking the students on some really enriching, wonderful field trips. We have had 3 so far. I've had great reviews for the Construction Trades Day. Kids really enjoyed that hands-on day. The FBLA leadership, they're doing a Pride Month that's focusing on different types of cancers and cancer awareness this month, and so they've done a wonderful job, and Jen Cove does a great work with them. And then Mike and Russ took a group to the Wright Museum. So lots of cool things going on, and many that are coming up. Homecoming week, I was just delighted. 50% of the student population showed up to that dance, and that's a wonderful turnout. And the music was great, the kids were well behaved. It was a fun night. I had a good time. And the Halloween dance is coming up on the 27th, which is a Friday night. And so the next thing that I'm gonna ask for you to vote on or give your approval to is the senior trip. They put that out to the senior class. They've been working on this idea since last spring, and it's a local trip, which is nice, and it goes from Wednesday, May 22nd to Friday, May 24th. That goes into the long weekend, and they're proposing to start with the Mount Washington cruise, spending the midday at Weirs Beach. Also, in Laconia, there's an art experience place that kids could go to as well. And then they want to stay at Steel Hill. Steel Hill has condos that sleep 8, and so there's a great possibility where the chaperones can be kind of within earshot, close by, but the kids can have a little privacy too, and there's lots of activities for the kids to do at Steel Hill, outside and indoor. The next morning, they would continue to have fun at Steel Hill. Then they would head over to Franklin. And so they could vote, go ahead and just have it be a hangout day in Franklin and not do the water park, or they could do the whitewater rafting, or they could do tubing. And then they would go back to Steel Hill, have a group pizza party, and then sleep over again, and then come back to Prospect Mountain the next morning. If they don't do any water activities at all, the cost is $235 per student, up to $325 if they do the whitewater rafting. They have been raising money. They're going to continue to raise money, so hopefully the Halloween dance will bring in some. They do the babysitter fundraiser at Christmas time where people can go shopping and leave their children behind. And so they still have things that they're discussing. And then they have the prom deposit that they're thinking about as well. So they're hoping to like subsidize this partially, maybe $50 to $60 per student, and try to get a good group to go.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposed
Okay.
prom trip for the senior, not prom, it's
I was gonna say
Senior trip.
prom.
Senior trip?
senior trip.
Long day.
Okay, great.
As proposed.
Okay, great. And
We're all having a rough night.
Was there a second on that?
Sorry.
Second.
Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Are
passes.
there parking spaces helping too? The ones, didn't they have to give some money?
Oh, they
for
did,
that?
yes.
Yeah,
So
shouldn't
that
be
helped
helping
raise
also?
money too, yeah. And if, they look beautiful too, they
They
did a
look
great
nice.
job.
Yeah, that came out nice.
So, CTE, all 30 spots are filled, so our students are utilizing this, so thank you for that. And tomorrow, 4 of them are gonna be inducted over at the CTE, so that's pretty exciting. No, Thursday morning. And then we're also, you know, as I'm getting into this community, finding out that we have students doing really exciting, interesting things, especially around 4-H and FFA. So I've been talking to some of the students involving that, approving them being gone from school 2 or 3 days a week, but really wonderful things, and that's all in your packet. And that's it for me.
Any questions of the principal?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. School counseling department,
It's printed in your packet.
it's in our packet. Any questions, concerns?
You haven't had a counseling department report routinely at past meetings, but when I received this via email about a week ago, I thought it would be appropriate. So no pressure on the new director of counseling, but you may or may not continue to see reports like this every month.
It's a good report.
Yeah, it's excellent. I'm glad to see all these activities.
Well, it's nice to see, especially with the concerns over the turnover we had in our guidance department. I like this. No pressure, but thank you for this.
She briefly mentions the work they're doing on career pathway planning and ELOs. I will tell you that I don't know if it's in Matt's report tonight. Are you going to talk more about ELOs tonight? No, then if he's not, I will now. Briefly, we are working on developing a more robust set of business partnerships. I met with a small business owner just yesterday who employs one of our students, and we're working out the background check and insurance and credit calculations and things like that in a way that's going to be, our intention is more consistent with practices across the state in how work-based and extended learning is being done in New Hampshire.
Good job.
Nice, thank you. All right, in our packet, we have athletic programs from Mr. Larson. Any questions on that?
Yeah.
I have building.
You have a
Building
handout.
grounds,
You know, so you have a handout on the table
Oh.
for athletics. It's
it's the colored one.
it's this.
Very colorful.
Yes, it's the colored one.
There's another colorful one too.
There you go.
Say something about that. Wyatt would like to say something.
Wyatt knows what this is.
Yeah, well, know this
No, I'd like
about
to add about the
the
counseling
counseling.
report. They had sent out a Timberwolf tips to all the students, and it included all upcoming college visits and events, and I found that very helpful, not just to me, but heard very positive feedback from others as well.
Nice.
So the prospective, which some of you are looking at, appears to be the new athletic newsletter. The silicone wristband initiative is new. I'm surprised to see it on the front page. I think I heard about it 2 days ago, and here they are already. The principal's wearing one.
And yet we don't have one each.
All right,
You can have mine.
we'll see what can be done.
This
If you show good sportsmanship.
This is also impressive, and I would like to make sure that the AD knows that it is appreciated.
Yeah,
Noted.
Well, and I
I've
was
never
just,
seen anything like that.
I will pass that on to you.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
would love to see it emailed to parents and emailed to as many people as possible. I think it's a fabulous step in the right direction.
and I just, you know, the games under the lights was a good start. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah,
There
that
were
was
so many kids, there were so many parents and kids there. It was awesome. It was really good, and I know, talking to Mr. Larson, he wants to make it even homecoming bigger next year with cross-country. Try to do a lot more of everybody. This is what was handed to him at this year, but he wants to do more next year. And I'm impressed with the SALT program that he's trying to bring here, the student athlete leadership training. So there's a lot of good positive stuff here. Oh, there we go. Buildings and grounds report. That's,
We let Mr. Asdot stay home tonight. The biggest initiative here, even though he only gave it 3 lines and 1 bullet, has been tracking down the company that designed and installed the parking lot lighting system. If you spend any time here at night, you know that many of those lights, maybe most of those lights, aren't on. They're not burned out. It's software. And the software was custom designed by the engineering firm that installed the system. Sean tracked them down, found out why they were no longer doing business with the school and supporting the system, addressed that problem, and they were here yesterday or today and come back either tomorrow or the next day, and we should have the lights back on in the parking lot.
that'd be great.
Good job, that sounds like a frustrating process.
Does that include
Everything's
the
great.
lighting at the entrance to campus? That includes the lighting at the entrance to campus off of 20?
Yeah,
That's
so
really
there are a lot of exterior lighting
Okay, but it goes
issues,
all the way
and they're all being addressed together. When we come to the budget, we'll talk more about capital planning and the building. You know, it's 19 years old, so I've been the first offender in talking about how wonderful it is to have a relatively new building, but you know, Sean has done a really good job in just a few months of inventorying some things that really do need to be addressed. And on your way out, I'll have you take a look at the steel doors right here, and you'll see that some of them are in need of replacement. Good news is we still have some ESSER money and building envelope issues like windows and doors qualify for ESSER funding, so you can look for us to do probably a small window and door project by the end of the year using some of that money.
Well, I want to commend Sean for that extra mile he always puts in.
He does.
Yes, definitely recognize his work.
All right, next
I have a
up,
question about the
Sure.
lightning strike.
the what?
The lightning
Lightning
strike.
strike,
Oh,
it's in his report.
That's happened before. This is a repeat. Is there anything that can be done?
Yeah, so when Sean called the vendor in to respond to the lightning strike, they informed him that they had prepared and submitted to the school a plan to remedy that problem in the past. So we are now executing that plan, and we can pay for it out of the budget.
Lightning rods, right?
Lightning rods on the pump house, it's not that complicated.
No, because
Good
when
old-fashioned
I was growing
lightning
up, we
rods.
had
It-
lightning
Yep.
rods, and it's like, I never
Yeah.
got hit, so.
Apparently, it goes back years, and you were here for it, but this was my first time with a lightning strike. Yeah, they suggested a solution to us the last time it happened, so we're implementing that solution now.
Progress.
Thank you.
Everything's great.
Next up in our packet is a technology report. Does anybody have any questions?
The only thing I would highlight on technology is the surveillance camera server is eligible for a SAFE grant. SAFE is an acronym, and I don't know what it means, but it's a grant program being duly administered by Homeland Security and the Department of Education. They are in round 3 of the SAFE grant out of an anticipated 4 rounds, and they're giving priority to schools that have not previously received grants in rounds 1 or 2, and this school has not previously received a grant in rounds 1 or 2, so I think it is likely that we will get the full up to $100,000 SAFE grant to replace the security camera system in the school.
Can I add to this?
You can.
Assistant Principal Amanda Russell and I were talking with Matt Dumont, and we were talking about the lack of clarity on the cameras. And so we were saying we need different cameras, and he said, no, we need a better server.
Yeah.
So if we have a server that's able, better capacity, then you'll get more clarity, which will be really helpful, and then hoping to get more cameras.
Great.
So.
Can I just add, I know they have a good cybersecurity focus on the technology team here, but these kinds of systems, HVAC systems and security camera systems, tend to be how districts are getting taken down by ransomware, because they tend to be pretty new, so let's make sure we keep them
Yeah, so
secure.
one of the reasons we're going to probably request the maximum you can get in a SAFE grant is $100,000, and one of the reasons we're likely to hit that or come close to that is because unlike many schools that are now using cloud-hosted, web-based surveillance systems, our IT staff refuse to do that. It is one of the very few physical servers we have in our own server room in the building, and it's for that exact reason. It's one of the most common ways that people get into school systems. Everything's great.
While we're talking about IT, I have a, sort of a complaint. I don't know if it's the IT department that has made that requirement, but we're getting our packets. We've been getting them in the past through email, regular PDFs, just open them up, everything's perfect. And now we have to go through a Google product. And I
If you
can't,
scroll all the way down to the bottom, they're in PDF form on the very bottom.
can't open them.
Oh, that's how I read them. I opened my PDF.
I've opened them that way too. The only trouble I started having today was the expenditure or finance report that we have to sign. That's something new, but I've still been able to open the but it's something I think is, depending on what email they send it to, is my understanding.
So you're not able to open them.
Only on my phone, which makes it very hard to read.
Yeah, you don't want that.
That's where I open mine. on my
Me
phone.
too. I haven't tried the computer, so I'm not sure.
I think we can take care of your issue. We
I mean,
can.
I did email Debbie and say, I can't open it. So she sent it to my phone, which is a different, that is Gmail, so I could open it there, but it's very hard to read.
It is hard to read on the
No,
phone.
we want it on your computer, and I think we can address that with you offline.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Moving on, more buildings and grounds, committee report, athletic fields, irrigation, practice field. Do you want to talk about that? You want-
There was a Building Grounds Committee meeting on Monday, September, was it the 18th maybe? Something like that. And it was where the groundwork was laid for tonight's public hearing that took place earlier on the possibility of withdrawing funds from the Capital Reserve Building Maintenance Fund for the purpose of potentially installing more irrigation capacity for the backfields, even though it never stopped raining. This past summer, in the past, those fields have dried and turned brown, and as a result, there are bare spots that just never grow grass out there. It's not because of anything that happened this year, it's because of what's happened for probably 2 decades, practically. So if we really want to be able to reliably grow grass on those fields, we need to be able to irrigate them. Right now, the school is served by 2 wells with, even though they're acceptable capacity at about 5 gallons per minute, that's not very high capacity. And they pump into holding tanks, one of which is used for the building's water. It lasts about a day, so if it's full, and when we had the lightning strike, I sent you all an email and let you know we'd still be open, working from the tank. And we have backup pumps for that, so if we lose power, we can still fill that tank. So generally, we're good for a day if all these systems go down. The other holding tank doesn't get filtered because it's for irrigation only. But one of the things we've learned in the last few months of talking about the condition of the outdoor facilities is that there's not enough water in that holding tank by the time we're done watering the front fields to water the back fields. So this is, I think, what that committee spent a good amount of time on that night, along with the possibility, and I think we'll leave it at that for now, the possibility of changing the outfield fences on the baseball and softball fields from these permanently installed galvanized chain link fences that are out there now to PVC breakaway fences, which you install sleeves into the ground that have plastic caps that screw onto them. So in the off season, the fence is just taken away, and that cap is like a sprinkler head, so you can play sports right over it, mow right over it. And then when it comes time to play baseball or softball, you take the caps off, install the breakaway fence. One of the advantages, there are disadvantages too, so I'm not advocating right now, just trying to explain. One of the advantages of the breakaway fence system is that they're spring-loaded at the base, so when the center fielder goes running full tilt trying to catch that potential home run and goes into the fence, instead of hitting a galvanized steel fence that's based in concrete, they just go right through the thing and it flops down to the ground and then springs back up. So there is some injury prevention potential there. I think that's for another day.
Yeah.
But for tonight, you've got an upcoming question about are you willing to consider withdrawing money from the capital reserve fund to?
So in that meeting, the discussion, the biggest thing we came up with and found out was until we can fix the irrigation system up there and get them some water, it doesn't make sense to move forward with anything else up there until we can first find if we can get a well and get water up there. Once we do that, then we're going to have an opportunity to actually fix those fields permanently, and you know, that's whether it's having bringing more material in and grass and everything else, but first we have to make sure we can get water. That's what came out of that meeting.
Yeah, the field repairs aren't nearly as expensive if you can water what you put down.
Which is what happened
If you can't, it's a lot more expensive and it might not work.
All done for buildings and ground, right? So curriculum assessment.
Good evening. Similar to the Buildings and Ground Committee, the JMA Curriculum Committee met on September 25th to outline the purpose and establish objectives. The focus of the meeting, we took a look at the current vision and mission statements here at Prospect Mountain High School, as well as looking at the system-wide goal around cultural competency. And then we were looking at what type of goals we wanted to accomplish for this academic year. After looking at the mission and vision and talking about cultural competency and how that cultural competency will contribute to the vision and mission, it was determined that the committee would conduct a cultural competency audit of our program of studies. So that'll give us an opportunity to take a look at potential implicit and explicit biases that may be contained within the program of studies to make sure that we're have equity across the board for all of our students and the offerings that they have. So throughout this year, we'll be focusing on understanding that scope of the audit. Part of that will be developing a rubric so that as we go through the program of studies, there's a rubric that we can go up against. Faculty and staff will be able to take a look at it, as well as that committee. So again, we'll get some different lenses for that piece of it. Certainly it's going to take throughout probably the entire year to do that piece of it before any recommendations or potential changes are made moving forward. So you'll hear more. Our next meeting is on October 23rd. So remember, committee members, you have some homework to finish as part of that piece. So we'll see you on the 23rd. Professional development tomorrow is our system-wide professional development day. And Prospect Mountain faculty and staff, they'll be participating. We're doing 3 learning sessions that are tailored toward the school's mission and goal. One of the things that the faculty will be participating in is a continuation from last year's professional development focused on our mission of personalized education. As if you remember last year, they did a lot of work in terms of really kind of coming to a consensus of what personalized learning is. So we have a definition that everybody's looking at. They started to look at how personalized learning is in their classroom and reporting out. Tomorrow's session will be one of 3 sessions. What we're asking teachers to do is come with an upcoming unit, and the goal will be to start working on a personalized learning assessment for that unit. And in hopes that in sessions 2 and 3 that we'll be able to report out and get some feedback on that learning process. They'll be attending a session focused on the school goal. The school goal is on restorative practices. So I think when you look at tonight's request in terms of the STEP process, that's part of that restorative practice piece where we're looking at identifying where kids are making some mistakes and coming up with some plans and working with them to correct those pieces of it. So again, we have our school counseling department. One of our school counselors has done a lot of work around restorative practices. So her and Shaylee will be doing some work with the faculty and staff tomorrow. And then one of the sessions for our faculty members will be Connor's Climb, suicide prevention. That is a mandatory training that we have, so all of our teachers and our paraprofessionals will be part of that. The great part tomorrow too is our paraprofessionals who often sometimes get left out of some of the things, or the things that they attend aren't directed towards them, if you will. So they'll be working with our BCBA on Behavior 101. And then in the afternoon session, working with Jessica Hayes, who's the Barnstead school psychologist, and her session in the afternoon, identifying and understanding various personality traits in the classroom. So they'll have 2 sessions of their own so that it will help them support them in what their work. They'll also be participating in the Connor's Climb piece. So we're looking forward to tomorrow. And again, part of this is feedback from our faculty and staff in terms of how they want these days tailored for that piece of it. One piece that I didn't put in here, our elementary teachers will be participating in STAR assessment. They'll be going over the reporting practices now that they've completed that. We have a webinar where they'll be showing how to take that data and put it into practice. So, Title I, we are happy to announce that after taking a look at the STAR assessments from last spring and looking at some of it so far this year, the school counseling department has been busy contacting parents. We have approximately 16 students that have parents who have approved them participating in some Title I services. So beginning Q2, they will begin that process. We have set it up where kids will receive credit as they participate in there. Kathy Frazier will be working with them and using criteria for students to be able to quote unquote opt out in terms of being able to meet a certain criteria in terms of the Title I reading. We will continue to look at our STAR assessment data from this fall, and then obviously as we continue there, we'll look to see if there are more kids that pop up and if we can service some more kids throughout the school year. Remember, Title I, parents have to give us permission to be able to do so, even though we've identified a bunch of kids. If they don't give us permission, we can't provide those services for them. So we're looking forward to that process.
This is, board members, this is important here because there have been years in the past when this school was unable to use its Title I grant. This is a federal grant. So if you don't use it, you just don't use the money. And if you do use it, kids get reading and or math intervention services who need them, and it doesn't cost the communities anything because we're using this federal grant. That last piece where it is an opt-in program, so parents and guardians must agree to allow their students to receive Title I services is very important. Because there have been years when the school was unable to get parents to agree to allow their students to access the services, there were years when the grant couldn't be used. Using the STAR assessment data, our school counselors were able to talk with parents and be very specific about here's the grade level we're looking for and here's the grade level we've tested, and would you allow us to try to do something about this? The only other thing that's important to understand about Title I is it's not designed to be a class that a student is in all year. It is a program that students are supposed to move into and move out of. So the idea is to identify a gap in performance, to provide the intervention to close that gap, and then move the student out.
And it's to be noted that students, this will be during their study halls, so the kids aren't missing class time as a result of that. So we'll continue to bring you back information as to how that progresses. And lastly, just we did finalize our STAR testing. Thanks to Matt Dumont and his team and the faculty in grades 9 and 10 for their patience throughout the process. We ran into some initial hiccups. And then once we finished, we ran into an additional hiccup that we're working on right now. Our math scores are coming back. I got very concerned quickly because when I looked at the math data, everybody in grades 9 and 10 were in the red. And so as I drilled down, what we found out was even though our kids were put into the software correctly, it was identifying the wrong grade. So our 9th graders were being identified as 12th graders. Therefore, their results were being compared against a 12th grader, which made me feel a little bit better, knowing that maybe not all of our kids are in the red. So Matt has been working with Renaissance Star and their hierarchy to kind of figure out what's going on with this. As a result of that, we have not been able to share the results. Our English, our ELA are fine, but our math isn't. So I don't want to send anything home. I did ask Chaley to reach out to the parents of the grades 9 and 10 just to let them know that as soon as that is taken care of, we will certainly send those documents home so parents can take a look at the results. Keep in mind that we'll be doing another assessment in January-ish and then again one in the spring so that we can continue to have that data. And again, this will be a K through 10 data as we go through the year. So.
First of all, great find on the mistake, whoever found it, great job. I have a question about the suicide prevention training. And I know that this year it was Connors Climb. Was it Connors Climb last year as well?
Only at ACS, not for the other schools.
Okay. So, because I mean, obviously it's a required training, and it's a very important training, but I feel like there may be other avenues and options out there to provide that training to keep it fresh. And I was just wondering if we could look into that
Absolutely.
for next year so that it's not the same, so that the teachers are not getting the same program.
Yep. No, there absolutely are. I'm very familiar with some of them, and we can, because we hadn't used Connors Climb and have a relationship with them for 2 of the schools, we decided to do that this year. But absolutely. State law, for anyone who doesn't know this, New Hampshire state law requires that we provide 2 hours suicide prevention training every year for all staff. So that's something we have to do, and a variety of ways is helpful. Yeah.
And we could work with the social workers to kind of come back with some proposals for next year.
That would be great. I want to keep it fresh for teachers.
Absolutely.
You know, it obviously is a very important topic. And I just think that it's important
As a
to
presenter.
not have it be the same program every year.
We don't want to become desensitized.
Yeah. Any questions for Matt? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll turn this over to the superintendent's report.
I think it made it to the table, and looks like this. Hannah, we're on. Can I show you the website again? We did this a few months ago when it was first launched, and you gave us some feedback, and we received feedback from meetings with administrators at each school, talked to the technology committees, and of course, received all sorts of other informal feedback along the way as well. So we'll give you a tour of some of the changes we've made, hopefully in response to some of the input you gave us. Here it comes. It's warming up. I saw a flash over here, so something's happening.
It's like the old time TV's gonna warm up.
Oh, here it comes. There we go. We might need to turn off the lights.
Yeah, lights.
Yeah, you might need to turn down a little bit.
Thank you. The most important thing, so this is consistent for all 3 schools, and then there's one for the SAU, which is primarily school board information. The biggest change from the first draft that you saw is instead of a menu up in the upper right over here, there's now a strip of menus right across the top of this image scroll, and we have cut the number of links at least in half that are there. Some of your feedback, and it wasn't just you, it was all stakeholders, was to have a families and student list of links that are the things people are most likely to be looking for. Staff directory, student handbook, school calendar, bell schedule, bus routes, just the things that probably the vast majority of people go to sites looking for. The curriculum link we have begun. The high school is probably the wrong one to show, although we've been working on it. We actually have a document with links to curriculum documents for every class that we offer in the school. The high school had actually done a really good job over the few years prior to the last NEASC accreditation visit in documenting curriculum, so we have a lot there that will be posted here. In student services, the counseling department has this page with a tremendous list of links to resources that students might need for college applications, scholarships, or career readiness. So I think that the interface when you're on a computer has been cleaned up a lot, primarily through moving to this bar. This hasn't changed. This is the way it was. You can go to ACS or BES or to the SAU. You see the same things in image scroll. And here's that bar across the top again. So it provides quicker access to the most important links. There's more work to be done. We're filling out curriculum links and have more work to do in departments within the schools to fill in some of the other pieces here, but we've already come into better compliance with some laws that simply require us to post certain things on our sites. I think as recently as, was it earlier this week or last week, Matt sent me an email and let me know we had added another required notice to the public on our sites. The next steps are to refine the content on the app. The app we're providing right now that people are downloading is pretty much just what comes out of the box from Apogee, and it can be customized. So if we think, and we have heard some of this feedback, that things like some of these most important links here should be featured prominently in the app, we can change that configuration very easily by working with Apogee, and we're holding some of those meetings this week. I can't tell you which day off the top of my head, but we're in this right now, and adding some of that content to the app is number one. The other most important thing that we're working with Apogee on right now is integrating our student information systems, so Infinite Campus at the high school, Power School at the elementary schools, with the, I can't go through this without saying, ThrillShare application that lives behind this and controls it all. Our principals, or myself, we can send emails, telephone calls that can either be the computer reading text we type or our voices. We can send SMS text messages. For people who have downloaded the app and opted in, we can send push notifications. And we need to get that configured not just to go to everybody, but to go to groups, so that we can send to faculty and staff, we can send to students, we can send to parents, we can send by school, by grade level. Once we have the configuration done, we'll be able to drill down to smaller and smaller groups so we can target those messages. This is the system we'll be using for delays and cancellations this year. So right now is the time to be getting this wrapped up.
Yeah. It takes a long time to get parents' contact preferences moved over to a new.
So it is a nightly update to the student information systems. It should be pretty smooth. So it works now. We've got some testing to do. In the next week or two, parents and students will probably get some emails, text messages, phone calls that just say this is a test. And that's how you'll know.
Are the athletic schedules on there and updated?
So the athletic schedules pull
Not on the app.
right from big teams. They're on the app too. The athletic schedules pull from big teams, which is the NHIAA website that we're required to use for athletic scheduling. So that's the scroll across the bottom here. Apogee is on this particular one. This is Alton.
So there's not like a PDF or something that people can click on to see?
So if I click see all events right here,
Yep.
then I get October sports. With a calendar over here, if there's a dot, it means there's something on the day. If I hover over it, it gives me a list, or I can scroll here to see it. Okay, so we need to fix the connection to the app, it looks like. On,
I just feel like that's another important thing
Yep.
that parents are looking for.
I put in a ticket on Friday with Aptigee, working with Matt Dumond. So the school we were just on, ACS, and the events scrolled down here included sports, but not the school's Google Calendar. So now we're on the high school, so here's sports and the school's Google Calendar. This is what it's supposed to look like. And they had it right, and it broke, and they're fixing it for ACS. So we're aware of that.
Those haven't downloaded the app. It's pretty, I mean, a lot of it is working. I mean, staff pictures are on here. There's quite a bit of stuff already loaded onto the app. It's free. So
We've spent much more of our time trying to refine the interface and the content on the websites up until now. And now we're turning our attention to refining the content and the interface in the app. And then the notification piece is very important right now because it is probably, a few weeks away from when we're going to need it. We have backup systems in place, so we still have notification systems that we can use until we're happy with this.
If parents go to the URL on their phone without using the app, because there is still a lot missing from the app, it will render phone friendly, right? Responsive. So it's smartphone friendly.
Yeah, I don't have a ladybug, or I'd just show it to you on my phone up there. But you can do it.
I'm suggesting a suggestion to them because
So
I know from
use
doing
Chrome on your
surveys
phone
with
is your
that,
suggestion? Yeah.
98% of parents don't look at anything on a computer, they're looking at a phone.
It's true. My other question, Tim, and I don't know, I'm wondering, so ACS has Power School, the high school has Infinite Campus. I don't know what Barnstead uses. but-
Power School.
Okay.
Yep.
So is there a timeframe of the high school moving to Power School so that it is all the same for parents?
There's a time frame for the conversation about a single student information system for all three schools, which is what I said is a little different from what you said. And I think the conversation is next year, because this year our IT priorities are unifying all of these different Google domains that we have into one, which is next year's summer project, and then the infrastructure project. Last summer was the Alton Central School backbone and switches and Wi-Fi, and next summer will be the Barnstead Elementary School backbone and switches and Wi-Fi. So if we can get those priorities taken care of in the coming summer, then the following year we turn our attention to SIS. That's a big project.
It's huge.
Everybody in every school will have an opinion, and we're going to be wrong no matter what we do.
Yeah, it's huge. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
That's good.
So if that's enough for kind of
That's
revisiting the website and giving you our current status with all of this, we'll move on in my report. ESSER use of funds. If you've been in your PMSAU email in the last few hours, you finally saw that survey that I think I promised you the day after your last meeting. That I sent out to staff as well. We are required by the federal coronavirus relief laws to consult with stakeholders in a lot of specific categories. So I'll be sending versions of this survey to the Disability Rights Center and to our partners at the Family Resource Center in Laconia and the regional mental health folks, and maybe at some of the private schools or specialized schools that we partner with for some of our students. We have to ask all of these stakeholders' opinions on how we're using ESSER funds in order to comply with the law that granted us the ESSER funds. We're also interested in what everyone thinks, because we still have some money to commit in the year we have remaining to use it. So we will legitimately read and be very interested in what people think we should use some of this money for. It's going to be useful input. Strategic planning, I told you after we issued the RFP last year that the only response we got was just a little excessively expensive, so we're going to be doing this ourselves. The good news is that some of us have led and facilitated strategic planning efforts for school districts before, so it is something we can do. I have attached to my report for you a 2-page outline of what I think the steering committee should look like. 32 people may seem like a lot, but I anticipate about 8 topic areas. So now imagine those 32 people divided into groups, working on 8 different topics, and it's probably starting to sound more manageable now. They're also only going to need to have 4 meetings. In between, and the meeting schedule that I propose is on the back of the same sheet. So if you're looking at the attachment, it gives the composition of the committee, 50% district employees and 50% students and parents. I included board members as employees in that description right there. Then on the back, I've got a proposed schedule for the 4 meetings and what happens at each one. In between these meetings, there are some other activities that would take place at each school where we would help the principals facilitate stakeholder engagement, where we would simply invite anyone who's interested, all staff, all employees, parents, just have open forums for people to come in and help with the school-specific conversations about the strategic plan. If it's hard to believe that this can be done in 4 2-hour meetings, it can. There's just a lot of work that happens in between those 4 2-hour meetings. Questions or comments on that before I move on? Or is that all right? For those who participate, it's going to be a tremendous amount of fun, I promise. If you turn the page in my report, number 4, this wasn't included in a proposed language change in the student handbook, but I just want to bring your attention to something that the interim principal brought to my attention a couple of weeks ago that I've looked into. You have policy on tobacco that's required by law. School campuses are tobacco-free. It is illegal to bring tobacco products or vapes onto school grounds. You also have a disciplinary policy, JFCG, which prohibits smoking or vaping by students and states that violation will result in a 1-day out-of-school suspension and referral to local law enforcement. There's student handbook language that allows up to 10 days of suspension. Now, I didn't work with Ms. Davis to propose a change in that language, but I think it needs to be clarified that a first offense tobacco or vape infraction should result in what the policy states, which is 1 day. I have found instances now that she's brought this to my attention that bluntly I should have been aware of, where our first offense response was greater than that. So I've actually contacted some families and taken responsibility and apologized for that. I think it's excessive and punitive. That doesn't mean I think students should be smoking and vaping. They should not. But we are supposed to engage in progressive restorative justice, not punitive measures, especially not for first offenses. So we should begin with exactly what the policy states, which is 1 day of suspension, and then referral means we talk to the police. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a legal consequence to a thing like being caught with a cigarette for the first time. And then I think that the reason I didn't ask for you to consider or for Chaley to recommend that the language be changed is because subsequent offenses by the same student could result in up to 10 days of suspension, but I think it would take a bunch of repetitive behavior in order to get there. So as long as we're clear about that, we're clear about that, I'm talking to you so that you understand what we're doing and have a chance to give feedback if you want to. It does appear to represent a bit of a change in practice. Good.
When you say suspension, is that out of school or in school?
It's in or out, and more often in, right? A first offense would be an in school, generally speaking.
I do not know that I've had any first offense in.
You haven't had one yet?
Yeah.
So the answer to the question, that's generally a judgment call by the principal based on the circumstances around the event, right, the infraction. Parents always have the right to appeal to me if they think that the principal's exercise of judgment is unreasonable, and then they have the right to appeal to you when they think that my decision after they appealed to me was unreasonable. On shared services, those of you who once served on a shared services committee, if you remember who you are, you might wish to identify yourselves in a minute because I am recommending that you reform the committee. You have, believe it or not, I've attached a copy of the shared services MOU between the Alton and Barnstead school boards. So for those of you who weren't on the board when this was agreed to, now you have a copy that you can look at. It's only 4 pages. It outlined a 3-year period followed by automatic 1-year renewals. Believe it or not, this is the first year of automatic renewal. The first 3 years have already elapsed, and you are in the first year of automatic renewal. So my suggestion is that the shared services committee that drafted and created this in the first place be reformed, maybe with new members. That's among you. And hold a meeting sometime in the next month or two to talk about what's gone well, what we should think about doing differently, and then to look at the MOU itself and decide if you're still happy leaving it in this annual renewal state or considering some other language changes. It just seems appropriate to take a look at it now that initial implementation is 3 years in.
There's a lot going on in the next month or two between budget and strategic planning and,
Spring would be fun. I mean,
push it, yeah. I think it'd be better to push it a little bit.
It's certainly not urgent that you jump on it right now. I do think that this year probably makes sense, right? It's those of you who were involved the first time, I haven't been here long enough to comment on the years prior, but what I observed was the boards from the 2 towns really working together. We're like really getting down to the business of how can we cooperate and how can we, continue to improve. And again, you've been through the first 3 years. Some of it's working well, some of it you may not feel as good about, and this would be a good year to talk about it.
I'll have it put on the agenda for next month to talk about who wants to be in shared services.
And because I've given you a copy of the MOU now, you can all start to think about it and decide who wants to be involved in that kind of thing. Is that good? Mm-hmm. On open enrollment and updates related to open enrollment, we have 11 students currently who do not reside in Alton or Barnstead attending Prospect Mountain High School. There was a 12th who started the year here but withdrew and went back to his previous school after 2 or 3 weeks. About 2 weeks ago, our school counseling staff met with the 11 students who are here. They shared with us, and we were able to share with all of our teachers, overwhelmingly positive feedback from those students. I've been in touch with their families, and I've heard the same from their parents and guardians. Their districts of residence have responded to their enrollment status here under RSA 194D in different ways. They come from 4 different towns, off the top of my head. And those responses include agreements to pay tuition for the majority of the students already, and we're just getting started. Tuition can't be set until last year's per pupil costs are calculated, and that means that the Department of Education has to review school districts' DOE 25 reports, which are due September 1st, but most districts, or at least a lot of districts, request and are granted extensions every year, so they really go in.
They're in.
No, not ours. Ours are in. Ours are in, but a lot of them go in October after being due September 1st. Ours sometimes go in with a 30-day extension.
Just to translate, that report is basically what you actually spent.
Yeah.
The previous
The DOE 25 report can't be sent to the Department of Education and DRA until after you've passed your audit. So you got an audit report. Did we get audit reports yet? Or you got a preliminary?
It's preliminary.
Yeah, you got a preliminary audit report a month ago. Our DOE 25 reports were able to go in. Other districts are all doing the same thing. Based on those reports, after they're reviewed and approved by the Department of Ed, then we find out everybody's per pupil costs, sorry, too many P's, per pupil cost for last year. Until then, we know what ours is, but it's unofficial, and that's true in all other districts as well. And when we're dealing with setting tuition rates for students who don't reside in districts, we need official numbers. There actually is a lot of longstanding practice in New Hampshire for districts charging tuition to other districts under laws other than RSA 194D. So how to do this is not difficult and not that complicated. We just need to wait until we have actual costs to base those conversations on. I've had some other discussions with some superintendents on behalf of their boards that I will talk to you about in non-public, which I would like you to please go into tonight under RSA 91A32, paragraphs K and L. You don't hear those very often.
I have a question. Of the 11 students that you carefully worded aren't residents of Alton or Barnstead, how many are open enrollment?
They all applied under, well.
No, some were here because.
So one of them was already here. The others all applied under open enrollment. And then
we had some students that were here because it was a better placement for them. It had nothing to do with open enrollment.
Yep, so 10 of these 11 students applied under open enrollment, and then we've been in negotiations with their school boards, which I really need to talk to you about in non-public.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order. As we look at the rest of the agenda, and it's already 8 o'clock, is there anything under action items that can slide?
Wait until next month?
There's a lot.
So I can tell you, if it's all right with you, Mr. Henry, that the open enrollment admissions procedure is listed as an action item, but I just actually want to remind you that I gave it to you in August, and I'm going to ask you to approve it next month. So that can slide right down to future agenda items if you will all agree to actually read that document, please. Thank you. No, that's another one, and this is a first draft. If you want to take action on it tonight, terrific, but I thought you wouldn't because it's a first draft. There is a homeschooler's handbook that has existed, and this is 90% similar to it. It has only existed for Alton Central School in the past. This is a version that has been modified to apply to the entire system, all 3 schools. But it certainly, giving you time to spend a month looking at it is probably reasonable.
Yeah, I can use that in the future as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, we need permission to do a reverse bid to sell some weight room equipment. That should be quick, I hope. If it's worth more than a certain amount of money, we're not allowed to do it without your permission.
Let's see what we can get through here. Action items, you have nothing else?
No, I'm done.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Encumbrances from buildings and grounds, capital reserve. Make a motion to authorize procurement up to $87,000 from the Buildings and Grounds Fund, purpose of adding the irrigation well and related infrastructure to the backfields.
I have a question. At one time I was told that building and grounds was only for unanticipated maintenance.
That is what the original warrant article read.
So does this qualify?
The reason this came up is because of concerns about safety on the fields, because the repairs to the fields didn't have enough irrigation in the back.
I understand that it needs it. What I'm questioning is we have an athletic fund for the field, and we have building maintenance, which I was told was for unanticipated maintenance. So it's like if something broke in the school and we had to get it fixed.
Well, it is unanticipated because because we discovered the fields were safe, so we need to get them up to grade. So in my mind, it was unanticipated that we need to now fund a well to make them safer for the kids, is what my understanding is.
Fields are broken and need to be fixed.
Exactly. So to me, it wasn't unanticipated because we didn't think about this during budget time last year. So that's
Called a
why-
loophole.
think
I
we're
mean, I was
planning
surprised
to
that
use
it-
the other fund as well, because there's more coming. This is just the water part of it.
Well, I think it's a good use of money. I mean, it needs to
Well,
be.
the other concern I have is that we had a company, and I don't know if it was actually Guilford Well or not, came out and did a study of whether or not we could have another well.
They did, so it was Guilford Well and Pump, and they talked to us about that when they were here looking at this. They looked down here in front of the building where the other wells already are. They've never explored the possibility of drilling out where the backfields are. I think because there hasn't been electricity there, but a few years ago we trenched and ran electricity back there.
Which that trench is part of the problem.
So they really think that we can get, are they convinced we can get water?
Nobody will guarantee that they're going to hit water.
Yeah, I mean, this has been an ongoing thing for years and years and years. What are we gonna do if it doesn't resolve it? Go to the next thing?
That was over at ACS that we couldn't hit water. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it happened here too, Carol.
Oh,
She's,
it did?
she's right,
Oh,
yeah,
it
Eunice
happened
remembers.
here.
They did, there are 2 wells here, and they tried to, for this reason, but they stayed down here because that's where the infrastructure was. And they weren't successful. So they've never explored a possibility out in the back.
There's a different method. You don't have to go straight down. There's
And-
that pound and whatever it's called.
And we're exploring that as well. So this number, this is not a quote, this is not, well, it's a quote. This is not a bid. You're not deciding to spend this money, you're not deciding to award the work. Tonight's decision is the board willing to allow these funds up to, not to exceed this amount to be withdrawn from this fund? Then we'll go do procurement. And if there's another technology that can get us water back there
Hopefully.
for less money, that's what we will bring you. And we're working on that. We're trying to get in touch with somebody
Been talking to him.
who we think's been traveling lately.
He's been traveling.
Well, we're guessing. Can't get him.
There's a local well driller that does that method, that knows very well how to do it, and it
The
does produce
pounding?
water. Yeah, the pound. He did it at my house.
I have it too. That's what I have.
It produces water much faster.
It comes down to, this is the time to fix the field, with all the problems we had up there, and the only way to do it is we have to get water up there. If we don't get water up there, we can't do anything with the fields.
I'm not questioning the need.
No.
That was not my question. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
Did somebody second my motion?
Yeah,
Ann did.
Ann did.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstention? Okay. That passes. Okay, next up is a driver ed proposal.
On the table, you will find, it looks like this, it's the Driver Education Services bid specification sheet. It has been submitted by Thin Blue Line Driving School, LLC, out of Windham, New Hampshire. He is a retired police officer. He runs driving schools under this name in multiple locations, has a good reputation, and has a local partner who is looking to get into operating a driving school. So the way the driving school business works is you or I just can't go out and hang out a sign and get a license and start doing it. We would need to work first as an apprentice to somebody who's in the business, and we have to take a certain number of classes through a technical college. So the gentleman who's doing this lives here locally, has students in the school, works as a police officer now, and is in the process of getting a certification. So what he would do is work for Thin Blue Line Driving School, but work here, doing those internship hours and that supervised teaching with a more limited number of students. So in the proposal, we have, I think, 12 students at a time. Yeah, initially, on the last page, initially 12 students per session, until staff could get fully certified, and then more staff could be certified by taking the community college classes and doing their internship. So their goal is that by the summer, they would have 3 certified provisional certificate holders, and then they could get up to 30 students per session. So if we're willing to grow with them, they would start their first session this January. for 12 students.
That's great.
I know some people are actually in this, and
Do we ever need a motion on this to discuss
You do.
it? So I'd like to make a motion to accept the Thin Blue Line driver's ed proposal.
Second.
My only concern is the cost.
Yep.
A lot of money.
It's not
$900.
$900.
Yep.
it's $825 or $850 down in Epsom.
Well, parents do have other options and other.
They do, and I just wanna note that
Yep.
it's a lot of money and it's more than other local businesses. And I just wanna say, I feel like it's it's not fair to parents who don't have the option to go someplace else. That's all.
I don't
I don't
think
know
it's
what the going
far
rate
off
is.
from the current. It's not that much. I mean, it is more, but it's not that much more.
How much is it?
Like,
It's either $825 or $850, they just paid down.
When it was $750 when I.
yeah, I
it's
just
a
paid
little
over
$800 now.
800.
It goes up
So-
every year.
Every year.
But I
So-
It's
wonder.
a lot of money.
So we ended up, after about the last 6 months of not being able to get a driving school, we had conversations with 3 interested driving schools in the last week and a half. Boom, out of nowhere. And they were all, this is the highest, but this is the only one that submitted a proposal to us also after our conversations. 825 was the lowest, 900 is the highest.
It comes out to $19.56 per hour, because it's 46-hour total between the classes, the driving, and the observation pieces of it.
And because we heard his sales pitch, I can repeat it to you, but it's his, not mine. They have brand-new cars, not old beat-up cars, and, you know, they have all kinds of reasons why it makes sense.
From somebody who had it as part of their curriculum in high school.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah,
Me too.
Me
too.
To say I experienced both what we had and something else.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah. Good. Very good point.
Yep.
So, that's it.
And since I heard that they're willing to grow, it doesn't necessarily mean that Tim can't go back and say, hey, the board was good, but is there any way we can just massage that, what it costs,
Get right.
right? It's
No,
worth an
I
ask.
Say whatever I want.
understand the things, but it's just,
It's expensive.
It's expensive.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Abstentions opposed? All right, that passes. Excess equipment, rate room, equipment for disposition?
It's a dumbbell rack, and not all of the dumbbells, but some of them, but they are worth something. So what we do in situations like this is we conduct a reverse bid. We advertise on our website that we have this excess equipment, and we take sealed bids, essentially. It's as simple as, my name is Tim Broderick, and here's my phone number and address, and I'll pay X amount of dollars for this equipment, and we allow the public to come in and view it, and we set a deadline, and then the business office opens all of the responses on the same day, and whoever offered the most money buys the stuff.
I might include like free cookies if they'll take it away.
Oh, yeah, and that's what we're really getting out of it, is they have to move these things. We have like 65-pound dumbbells out there.
I make a motion to propose, the disposal of the excess assets.
Weight room equipment.
Of the
Got it.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
We do have newer equipment.
Yeah.
It's older equipment.
Yeah, this is the oldest stuff, and the weight room was just overcrowded. It was a safety issue.
It was.
In the weight room. I think that as new equipment has been purchased or acquired over the years, that they didn't get rid of anything. New equipment is great, but you've got to get rid of the old stuff.
And the old stuff was a donation.
If only the swap shop was open at the dump.
Oh, geez.
I miss it.
I had to say that. I had to say it.
They didn't have it.
That was a great place.
They
Anyways,
used to have a swap
all in
shop.
favor? Aye. Opposed? No?
Thank you.
All right. So we're gonna move from homeschool handbook to the future item,
Terrific.
open enrollment admissions procedure to future item, so we're on to policies. And I am happy to take them in lumps, you don't have to read them all, someone just wants to make it.
So the first one, the annual approval, I think it's important to act on separately. Then you've got some first readings and do whatever you want.
I move annual approval of policy DAF.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions opposed? Passes.
make a policy to propose the first reading of policies CAN, DFGA, FA, FAA, IKL, KCD, DJE, EBCC, EHAB, GBCD, GBEBA, JCA, and JKAA.
Second.
Any discussion on those?
Everything on this list, with the exception of GBEBA, was recommended by the School Boards Association based on a new or newly amended state law. And the policy committee met recently and went over them all in detail. That one exception, GBEBA, employee dress code, is an entirely new proposal. So you're considering a vote on first reading. You would then have time to go back and look at it and come back.
Okay, so we need time to digest that
This is
one.
only first reading.
I haven't even looked at
All in favor?
it. Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, first reading is good.
I make a motion for second reading and approval of KF, KF-R, JECB, and JFAB.
Second.
Okay, it's a motion and second. Is there any discussion?
So these are the ones we talked about, the schedule of fees? Is that what's in that
Last month.
policy? Okay. But we had already talked about that. Okay, thanks.
Any other further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay.
Make a motion to withdraw the following policies: ADD, EBB, BEDG-R, EBC, which is also combined with EBCA now, EEAEC, GBA, and JEC.
These policies are all replaced by or eliminated by or combined into one of the policies you just approved for first reading in the longer list immediately above.
Okay, second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No? All right. Good.
And point of clarification, I noticed on the list that Ann was reading out, the very first policy CAN is incorrect, so it's actually policy ACN.
ACN.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
You have one resignation under personnel.
Make a motion to accept the resignation of Laurel Vachon.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We have 3 interviews scheduled this Friday for a facilities manager for the high school. Just 2? Tuesday. Sorry, not this Friday. Next Tuesday. We have 3 interviews scheduled. And on the principal search, I didn't bring you any documentation tonight, but I will bring it to you at your next meeting. The way we would typically do something like this, those of you in Barnstead have been through it recently, is we would put together a stakeholder committee. I prefer not to serve on that committee at all. And that committee would craft the advertising, the job description, whatever we want to represent our need to the public as, would solicit applications, would review them, would determine how many of those applicants to extend interviews to. That committee would conduct those interviews, write the questions, do that whole process, and then send to me a number of finalists that they could also determine. 2 is traditional, but it doesn't have to be if the committee decides another number is appropriate. So if it's okay with you, I'll outline that for you in writing and suggest a composition of that committee for the next joint board meeting, and then we can initiate that process probably in December and conclude it by March.
Sounds good. Anything else? All right, with that being said, we are now at the second public input, so I open the second round of public input.
Marilyn St. Cyr, I just had a question, but I don't know that you can answer it in this format. The facilities, the person who's going to be in charge of facilities, I've not heard that title before here, and I don't know what are the responsibilities of that person. And perhaps they're replacing things that people have left that did certain jobs, and that they're going to do that. But it seemed unusual with all the cuts that I guess have been to a lot of it to save money, and now like we're going to hire a facilities manager. It just seemed odd, but again, maybe they're gonna do those things that people that have left would have done. But that's my question, and I don't know if you can answer it, so.
I can answer it. So we had one that managed all 3 schools, and the person that was doing the school withdrew from up here, so now we have to have somebody be in charge up here, basically.
Oh, so there was a person that did all 3 schools?
Yes, ma'am.
And that person is gone, so.
Yes, so we still need a facility manager for here.
I see. I was not aware that there was already somebody doing this job, and I thought it was new, and hence my question. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
Any other public input? Seeing none, I will close public input. Future agenda following items, which I know we have already, the handbook, open enrollment procedures, principal search. Was there other things? Update probably on RFP for the well. Okay, sounds like we got plenty there. I'm just looking around, anybody's got anything else?
Anything else?
All right. Anything under other business? If not, I have 2 things under other business. First, I'll read this letter to Superintendent Broderick, basically from Debbie Brown. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Alton Board and the JMA Board for the opportunity to serve not only as school board member in Alton, but as the administrative assistant to the principal, ACS, when it was a K through 12 school, and then the executive assistant to superintendent of schools for both school districts for a total of 25 years at the time of my intended retirement. Due to budget process, this letter of mine is intent to retire as of June 30th, 2025. I have truly enjoyed the many wonderful people and experiences I have had in the Alton community, even though I live in Franklin. I will always call Alton my home. All my best for the future of Alton Board and Prospect Mountain Schools. Please let me know if you need any further information.
Denied.
Yeah. Not approved.
So, we have this letter from so.
Who's gonna take care of our food?
Who's gonna take care of everything?
I mean, actually we can. Do you want to accept this now, I guess?
Do we need a motion?
Not really.
We need a motion?
Accept it because I'm the support staff, but
Oh, okay. We don't
I
have to
just
accept
thought
it.
it appropriate.
We don't.
Well, let's do this formality. Let's do it anyway.
So make a motion to accept with,
Deep regrets.
Deep regrets.
Right, exactly.
Ms. Brown's resignation letter.
Due to retirement.
Correct.
Second.
All in favor? I would very much deep regrets and thank you very much.
Thanks
And
for-
we'd still have you
We
around
still
for a
have
little
you
while.
for another year.
Oh, a whole year and a half.
Year and a half. So
Year and a half, Deb. We'll have to figure out how to celebrate, huh?
the other thing I have, something else I want to read, but is taking on my role of chair. So bear with me. Good evening, all. I want to take a couple of minutes to address some concerns raised by individual community members. Let me start by stating the superintendent has done nothing that the board did not know about or direct him to do so. When we hired the superintendent, we tasked him with finding a way to bring in more students into this wonderful high school. We knew that the enrollment continued to decline, we would have to look at reducing classes and staff. We also told him the long-term goals was we wanted the boards a way to consolidate services. We also wanted to make a pathway that both schools could follow as the students funnel into Prospect Mountain. We heard loud and clear from parents and teachers that there were concerns about the curriculum and how it could be improved. So what's been accomplished? Multiple areas where we were able to consolidate so there's a cohesive flow between Alton, Barnstead, and Prospect Mountain. This includes the hiring for an individual with the right credentials to oversee development of said curriculum and could be the assistant superintendent, as we felt as the board it's important to have a succession plan. This has led to many meetings with teams from all 3 schools, and lots of progress is made, with more to come. We combine the athletic director position with one individual overseeing all athletics in the district, so we can have a strong feeder program into the high school and consistency among the coaching staff. We had the first ever games under the lights this year with a wonderful turnout. The ADs brought in the SALT program, Student Athletic Leader Training, new to our school to help develop our children to strong leaders. There's a lot more planned and ideas flowing to create a sense of community, identity with all of our teams to include drama, band, robotics, and all others. This is just to highlight 2 positions, but we have consolidated and streamlined in several other areas. Let me talk briefly how the board and superintendent have and continue to try to combat the declining enrollment. A couple of years ago, we worked on a plan to have the schools tuition to Prospect. All the local schools were approached, and we thought that we may have had a school that wanted to take advantage of that. It did not come to fruition. We had the opportunity to work with another school, but that also did not work out. The next option was to investigate becoming an open enrollment school. I won't go into all the details because you can go back and look at all the meeting minutes and videos. The superintendent worked with the Department of Education, who has supported us in opening us as a working with open enrollment school. The laws are in place on the books that we can do this, and they are helping us make this work. We can say that we are committed by several. We have commitments by several other schools already ready to pay, as we heard about tonight. This is just the first year with a small number of students. We have developed a criteria for accepting students, and it's our hope that this does continue and grow. It will help retain teachers, programs, offerings, and help offset taxes. We understand that change is hard. In my career, I have been appointed to 2 different jails as superintendent. I faced bumps in the road and staff choosing to leave, to include some of command staff. Change is okay when it's embraced. Things will work out. This is the first year with some people in new leadership roles. I ask that everyone take a step back and see how this year progresses. The board is working on different things to gauge how things are going, and we will adjust as warranted. Thank you. That being said, let me set in a new business. Okay, so we have to go in the non-public. It'd be under 91A, I'll just make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91-A, semicolon 32A and C personnel, and 91A 32 dot K dot L.
Second.
Too great. Okay, do I take a roll call vote?
Yes.
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 Thank you very much. We are now in non-public.
Thank you.